We're looking at the leading momentum companies on the ASX. We also want to find that leading momentum theme, being that top performing sector of the market that keeps outperforming. Then we also look at the launchpad, where the leaders generally come from. They show up in the launchpad first, often in a group or a cluster, and then move their way into becoming market leaders. This is called the 30-30 list. Gary Glover gets it on the Thursday afternoon at the same time that members get it. We get to walk through the list, put through their requests, and we're going to have a look at those charts right now to find the best lessons, the opportunities, the setups, and what we can do to become better momentum traders. Something that Gary's been studying for a very long time and in depth this week, something which we'll ask him about in a second. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good, Chris.
I know this week you said that, or last week you said you were studying Minivini in depth, and then you also continued on this week. An extension of sort of putting the two together, is there anything that you've learnt about momentum traders and then momentum themes? Like we know gold's been a very steady performer. Is that sort of typical of a leading theme, or is this abnormal to see gold just continue higher and higher? How does that fit into your studies?
Well, I think the one thing I sort of kind of got into my head this week there was one of the chats there. I think interviews there with Minivini, I think Brandon and Richie as well. So like just chatting about, like they all kind of agreed because they all work from Minivini now, sort of private access, but it was kind of like, I think it was Brandon sort of said, at some point you have to sort of surrender yourself over to the system. And it wasn't until I think that he was successful, and kind of like, well, that's quite a heavy sort of sentence in a way. It doesn't sort of sound like much, but you do tend to fight a new system there and then override it, and rather than just sort of play strictly to it. So it does sort of and the thing about these sort of sectors, and we've seen this with the momentum studies, Chris, is we just don't know how far these stocks can run. So, I mean, in golds, I've been guilty actually trying to play the short side here a couple of times here last week here on a few, or not a few, actually on two. One thankfully didn't cost me any money, and the other one only cost me a little bit. One that I missed actually would have been really good, but I'm trying to play against that. I mean, it's probably not such the sort of smart idea, but we don't know. When those can look extended there, those momentum sort of stocks, and but the great traders there, they will sell some into heat, then they'll let the rest of the balance run there, and then they'll let the market kick them out. So let the process take them along. So rather than trying to override the process, and even those who follow sort of Kalamagi, sometimes he'll use like, the really aggressive stocks, he might use the 10-day moving average. So every time that, he even says this over and over again, it's every time that he overrides his system, thinks that it's so far extended and he sells it. It goes up like another 20 to 40%. So, so you don't know how far these things can sort of keep going here. So that's the essence of actually good trading is good risk management, but then, taking some off into heat there to sort of try and keep the maths in your favor, but then trying to stay long for this,
You can.
for this potential sort of ride, which you don't know how far it will take you. And that's the essence of being successful. Just those three things there, really. Risk management, mathematics, and letting the profits run. That's it. That's the holy grail right there. It's but giving yourself over to it, following a process to capture that's the hard part. So, it's just really interesting that those are sort of that was the sort of the filter that sort of came in this week, and that's am I finally willing to surrender to this process and not try and override it, not try and take trades outside of it, not try and preempt it or post-empt it or, during-empt it, whatever you want to say. Just follow the bloody process completely every single time, 100% of the time. Can you do that? Is that, can you surrender and do that? That's the, It sounds weird, but that's all the greats who actually work upon that sort of essence there. Actually, one other on a side note there, I was actually reading something on Darvis during the week, and so obviously everyone's talking about, I was read sort of Darvis, it was obviously buying breakouts, so 52-week highs and breakouts there. The one thing people don't realize about Darvis was actually looking for volume. So all his breakouts that he bought, he was looking for an increase in trading activities and the volume. So some of I saw some old charts there, the sort of stocks that he bought, some of the biggest winners there, but he made it clear he was looking for an increase in activity and some momentum there in the price, but also just some conviction with that movement. And those were his biggest winners when there was volume in that. So I know there's a bit of an argument about whether volume can be clean or dirty and how meaningful it is, but pretty interesting there that someone going back a long time ago, because that was sort of one of his probably second sort of primary indicator. I mean, obviously you're looking for momentum, looking 52-week high, looking for volume. It's interesting.
I love the title of his book. So some of the titles of the best books have the corniest names, but they are some of the best books. I think, what was it, How I Made $2 Million in the Stock Market or something like that. And William O'Neill's How to Make Money in Stocks.
Yeah. He wasn't even doing it full time. He was dancing full time.
On delayed data too, right? He was on a cruise ship.
Yeah,
it was all delayed.
Yeah, he had a very strict system because of what he was doing, he couldn't get, I think he actually moved to New York for a while and was there for 6 weeks, and that was being close to the stock market was actually the worst he ever traded. So get away on the road again, have a strict system. Yeah, because of his job actually made him follow a strict system. So, interesting again, just surrender to the process. It's,
So that's your insight for the week, surrender to the process.
So
there's a fair bit of research behind it and sort of decades and decades and hundreds of years of experts, similar thing.
Well, maybe 20 years of trading experience. That's all, you could probably put that in the 2-minute snippet. There's 20 years of education here in 2 minutes, probably.
Yeah. But it's also you studying the greats who have had decades themselves and then compounding all of that together. And it's no coincidence that that's what they've done. But we should probably bring that over to where we are today. You do have TKM on the chart there. They are exposed to gold. I'm looking at the summary in iris, manganese, niobium, lithium, zinc, lead, copper, silver, handful of nickel, cobalt. Looks like they've listed everything that comes out of the ground.
Yeah. Look, normally like a 3 to 5 cent stock, I probably wouldn't bother looking at. I don't often bring them up on the list as well, because it's too small for me. But when I do see that chunky, heavy volume, and then you see like 5 or 6 big days of it, and it stands out for the year, then that does catch the eye. So that's the reason why it's there. I would trade personally, so it's more for me, but that big volume there is probably that's saying that there's a possible change in character for the stock there. So that's for those who trade the smalls, that's interesting. CRS I thought was interesting there, just because we did have a little VCP sort of B wave in there. So after having a bit of a, it's hard when they're really only having 1, 2, 3 day pop. So this thing goes up, 6 or 3 or 4 times here.
Hight Tight Flag.
Yeah, and then the whole thing sort of tightens up here. So, it does tighten up here, and then you get a little B wave in here, little congestion there. So once you sort of come out of here, what's that, around 5.9 cents there? That's what I would consider a little B wave break there. So they can have those big pops, tighten up, and then go again. So that's, that's what we're looking for really, across all time scales there, sort of show a strength, a bit of a consolidation, tightening up, trying to break out. If you could just trade those setups there, some of them fail there, but I'd say probably, you're probably getting 60% win rate in there, I would have thought. Just the size of the win rate is probably.
Well, the win rate on that, because it's a minor, and we'll talk about this in a bit later where we talk about the launchpad themes.
Yeah.
But the studies that we've looked at for Hight Tight Flags, if we want to double the odds of getting one of these to be successful and hit profit target, we just need to filter for it to be in a leading theme. And again, I'm looking at iris because it's a micro. I don't really cover it that much, but a miner, an explorer looking for gold, lead, zinc, copper, niobium, rare earths. So yes, that's the tailwind, and that sort of setup that you've looked at there, and just kind of like almost a VCP and a Hight Tight Flag almost, and then the B wave breakout. If it's in the strong sector, I'd kind of be looking for an excuse to buy it, because I know that it's doubling the odds that I'm going to hit profit target on it. It's broken out reasonably well. Anyway, sorry, enough of an aside on that. We're only 2 into the momentum leaders. What else have you got on the list?
AQD, another little B wave there. Obviously, this has had a pretty strong burst there, pretty small, but has sort of come back in 3 waves there. Does have a bit of a bounce there, and then have a little congestion there. So for me, I wouldn't be playing. What I look for is that sort of ideally that 3-wave pullback or that consolidation, and then look for a little high, little first high low break there again. So yeah, personally too small for me, but not the worst looking Chinese. Sometimes when they do this, because they go up here, they can do like the little A, B, C from a technical pattern there. So just keep that in mind when they go back to retest the highs. You kind of want to see a bit of strength going in here, but you still trade that B wave there, still get a nice move there. I thought that was interesting. GKY, number 7 there. Looked a little bit choppy, the stock there, but definitely did see a bit of a VCP sort of cup and handle sort of setup here, and the whole thing did tighten up in here as well. So, sort of testing this high here, bit of a cup here, a bit of a handle, pretty tight there, bit choppy, but did come out here on a bit of volume too. So you did get a breakout with some good volume. That's all you can sort of hope for if you're trading those sort of choppy up patterns there. I thought that was okay. What else we got there? SMP. So we've got a bit of a Hight Tight Flag going on here, but it is under takeover here. So it always makes it a bit difficult there. I'll try to work this out actually, because I sort of said like it's $1 NZ. So I was trying to work out what that is. Australian. And so it's obviously around this sort of figure here. But yeah, so you do have a little bit, but you've got a bit of a bid on the table there. Maybe you get a secondary bid a little bit higher, takes it out. I know Rene Rifkin used to sort of say he used to always buy after the first bid in anticipation of the second bid. Yeah, I'm not sure that strategy has worked so well in the last decade, but yeah, it's just it's unconditional bids you want to avoid, because they can be taken away and get rug pulled. So yeah, you want to avoid those type of sort of light-hearted bids, I guess you might sort of call it.
Yes. As you were warning before a few months ago, it's unconditional. So sorry, it's conditional. But I think just on that, it converts to about 91 cents. So it's under the bid, but time will tell. MMA, that's next on your list.
Yeah, so just a nice trend. Look, too small for me personally, but I mean, this has been a pretty nice trend. Look at how it's hugged that 50 all the way through. So you can see how like it's been hugging the 50 in here, came back to the 50 again. So yeah, I mean, this made a nice little congestion there, and then like literally come through the kind of handle again, you might sort of say. So yeah, it's been the interesting thing there is that's had good volume on that rally, had good volume on this rally as well, and we've had good volume on this rally as well. Yeah, so it's still looks pretty robust there. So I would keep this on the list there, because as we've seen here, sometimes these things can, we'll see them congest back and go again, congest back. I think. I'm just trying to think what stock there was.
Well, you think of it, I'm just looking at the November-December period after the pullback. And then the first week of December, it finishes a VCP with there's a bit of a pocket pivot sheet entry, and then a B wave break. And then it kind of just doesn't, it has one day where it throws back to the 50-day moving average. And then it's just gone from sort of like 10 cents to where it is today. That's at VCP while it's under 10 cents. It's a beautiful setup.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So did you remember the code?
No, I think it was like, might be, I think it was like, it's got a B and an 8 in it.
Well, like that, BC8.
BC8 is that? Yeah, exactly. So let's see how that's come back to the 50. It did cut the 50, came back to the 50, just come back to the 50 again. So I was looking at this morning thinking, oh, gee, every time it's come over the 50, it's just kind of burst off it. So, yeah, they can go a lot further than you think here, these sort of trends there. So, yeah, I think the key is just among of the pullbacks there. So that happens there. So MM8 was the last one there for AIS. So I thought this was interesting there. Just look again a bit small here, but I just noticed that, we've got a bit. This has sort of come back, probably a larger VCP here on the weekly sort of setup here, and a bit of volume on this rally as well. So that's kind of constructive there. So I thought this was sort of worth having a look at here. So look, it's definite downtrend there. So we want to see a bit of a change in character here, but has been a bit of an uptick in volume up to here. So just one to sort of watch out there. If you start sort of breaking out here, seeing a bit more, a few more lighter counter trends there, definitely one to keep an eye on there. I sort of circled that as to sort of go and do some more homework on that one. Because those sort of contraction patterns, they sort of can be like a long time there, and then eventually some of them do come out. And if the volume does increase there, they can come out of that lot. Some of them just dwindle away into wilderness as well. So I think you're going to do your homework there and have a look and see what's happening behind it. USL's interesting there. It's in that sort of silver space there. Just again, we've sort of broken that last little swing high. So it's been strong all year, showing relative strength, had a decent pullback. And now, look, it's now sort of broken a swing high again here. So this is definitely one to watch for some sort of consolidation pullback there. And gold and silver are still strong here, whether we think it's extended or not. Still pretty robust there. LRV, I think number 23. Yeah, again, just come back to the 50. I know it broke below it once there, but again, just a nice trending stock here. It's sort of like, again, just goes to show, I mean, that those BC8 LRVs, you can sort of see once they sort of start trending these stocks, they can do quite well. Thought RXL was interesting there. Just because it has been sort of winding up there, it was a bit of a VCP in here, sort of cup and handle, did break out, come back and retest the break zone, and it's built again. Started to get aggressive here. Thought this was interesting here that the last pullback has stayed well above the previous high. So that still leaves it in a pretty strong position. So normally when you see that spacing there, Chris, normally this should go to a new high pretty quickly. It is 3 days in here and we haven't seen really take off yet. So, but more likely than not, does go to a new high when there's spacing like that. But yeah, just watching this there sort of really should be trading a little bit firmer, but trend structure pretty robust.
I think gold and nickel, so says Iris. So
yeah,
tailwinds.
Yeah, watching drone show as well. I mean, it's sometimes the previous sort of big winners there, they don't always may not come back here, but they could come back as well. This has been reasonably constructed. There's been a bit of volume in this rally, so going through a bit of a reset now. We're sort of now broken below the 10 and the 20-day moving average. So if you're a momentum trader there, you probably, you should have been knocked out. So if you were trading this on the upside, you should have, the pros would have sold some into heap and they would have backstopped the rest using a 10 or 20 or, or some sort of, some sort of trailing so that, so you don't want to be having deep drawdowns here. I mean, that's what's that 120 down to 9. That's a 30% drawdown. That's what momentum traders do not do, is let something drawn in at 30%. So
don't keep it all back.
Yeah. But this is definitely one to sort of keep an eye on here. I wouldn't say there's, aggressive volume so far in this sell down. So you'd like to sort of see this sort of flatten out here. Maybe go through a bit of a, time consuming pullback there. And I don't know, I can't help but sort of seeing what's in the backdrop here. What's happening in Europe and Russia, but that could be months away as well. But so this, this is interesting stock here for me. I think this is potentially in play, but would love to see this go through a bit of a larger 3-wave correction, tighten up, then maybe break a B wave, and maybe that's a month away from now. But definitely one that I've got on my radar just to keep an eye on there, because I think in terms of defense stocks there, it's the one that's moved the most there, the probably highest beta. I think EOS is the other one. Yeah, that has gone to a new high here recently. So again, it showed a bit of strength there as well. So this is probably more interesting actually on the weekly chart EOS as well, because it sort of had a bit of a run. It's had cooled off here, started to build here, and then we've sort of pulled back. It hasn't gone to a new low here. It's sort of been consolidating, kind of building a base here. You can see it kind of elevated volumes in here as well. So this is sort of one just to keep an eye on here. Yeah, it's gone to a new height, which is constructed there, but it just might need to build here, use a bit of time up. But definitely those two stocks are on the radar there, just because of what might be, unfortunately, around the corner and in the months ahead. So just gotta keep an eye on those.
Well, as you mentioned, that Thematic, it's something we've looked at and in lists that we share backwards and forwards about ranking launchpad themes. I think defense was ranked pretty highly last week. One list that I sent yesterday afternoon, aerospace, which they're both sort of in that industry in a sense, that was ranked number one. And then further down, you still got defense and you got Internet of Things and IT goods that they both sit in, but definitely number one ranked this week has been aerospace. But I'm jumping ahead. You've got PDI on screen. So what's PDI telling us?
Yeah, the PDI has been, again, one of those sort of stronger stocks there. Did sort of come through a bit of a cup and handle there out of January, and then went up pretty aggressively. It's had a through a pullback there. Again, pretty, if you look through that period there, through here, you don't see too much. You don't see it's hard to sort of see that volume bar is skewing it there. But if you do zoom in, and you'll see that pretty light volume throughout that period. They're not really aggressive there. And now it's sort of gone through and gone back to a new high here. Even the last few days here as well, where we've had like, little pullback here for the last few days there, and not very
Good. Am I missing volume?
Yeah, so here's the 1 day of volume, which we often see there, but then we sort of see that, a lot of volume through that. And look at that heavy volume on that break there. Yeah, that's really, that's good, sort of convincing, impulsive, robust volume there. And it sort of pulls back here, has a bit of a rally, pulls back and then lightens up here. Yeah, so it's still in a strong position here. It's nothing wrong with that trend at all. So,
and yesterday's low, I think, is just sitting on the highs of February. So that sort of bodes well, doesn't it? Where they on top of it.
Yeah, and I just leaves it in a very strong position there. What else we got there? I think I know so Spartan had a nice little Hight Tight Flag, even after sort of having a bit of a pop to a new high there. Might have looked a little bit exhaustive there, but again, we saw a little bit of volume in there, which might have been a bit of a concern there, but still not heavy for it. So if you look at sort of when, because look at that volume that's burst out here, some actually pretty constructive volumes there. But yeah, so I had a nice little Hight Tight Flag here, and then it's gone again here. So, getting pretty robust there. It's probably getting a bit stretched here now, a bit risky here, but yeah, it's been a pretty awesome stock there. I did sort of think about this. This was an undercut there, Chris, as well. So I think that low there was 127. So I looked at that and thought, that's 126.5. We just undercut that. So that's something the stronger names do a lot. So they'll sort of have that big run. They'll sort of cool off and go sideways a bit, and they'll just undercut a low like that. So that was a really, really nice little undercut there. And then I think trying to think of a trader there. It talks about this sort of
David Weiss and a different one.
Yeah, a different one. I think it's like one of the sort of US momentum traders there. Who's, I think he might have finished second or third a couple of times in a row or something there. He looks for this sort of, he'll trade this, like I know, Gil Morales and Katra and stuff there, they trade the undercut. They call it the undercut. Other guys will, I think there's, I think Toby Crabel is sort of one of the old traders that used to call it like the three. Like he used to call it the undercut or something, and then it's 3 EMA. So basically, he's looking for it to break above, and then once you've actually broken above the 3-day moving average, then you go long. So don't just buy the undercut thinking this is undercut going, because then sometimes they can fail through. But if you give it, it's undercut this day here, it's another another 1 day, the second day. So I think Toby Crabel system says that he buys on a break of the 3-day EMA. So once it breaks above that, is our false break day there, second day, third day. So once it breaks above the high of those 3 days, to buy that. So that would have been what, 120, 130. So that was 133.25. That was 132. So basically, once it breaks above 133.25, so once it trades 133.5 by that break, that's kind of his rule. It's pretty interesting exit rule, actually. And another trader covers that actually quite well. But yeah, it's a good little rule. Actually, I've actually written that into my playbook. So I've had a few. Yeah, I haven't had actually too many bad trades actually trading notes. They just don't set up that often. So yeah. So yeah, and the ones that actually fail, they fail to hit the target. They don't fail to move up. That makes sense all the time. So
you know, down much, you just have it increase as much as you wanted.
It often tend to going to move in the right direction. It's just whether you follow through or not. That's a good failure to have. So some of the patterns that it can dance and then they break out, and then
So a negative drawdown, which is a good thing to have.
Yeah, it's one that I don't see it fail. Don't see it fail that often. Or don't see it reverse that often. So which is a nice pattern. Yeah. WAF. I mean, actually, this is a beautiful cup and handle we called previously, but now it's sort of this is interesting here because this is the first time now we've actually do have like a negative sort of looking pattern there. So it's obviously come out of this nice handle here, had a nice run here, and it's pulled back. You know, there's medium sort of volume in there. Then it's rallied to a new high again, pulled back again into the range. Bit of selling in there as well, so a little bit heavier than you would like. And now it's rallying up again here. So this is like a little 1, 2, 3 thrust high here. So yeah, I know a lot of I know McLaren used to not like to sort of see that strong trend that's been running for quite a while and then have the 3 overlapping peaks there. Because what that sort of shows is that, you know, instead of sitting on as this breaks up here, instead of actually sitting on top of that, so the pullback, a strong trend will sit on top of that, really strong trend will leave space in between that. So this is actually pulled back into the range and broken back below. So that's kind of like, it's more of a sort of sideways, or so instead of being an impulsive trend, it's more of a corrective trend, more like a sideways trend here. So even though it's going to new highs here, it's only just going marginally higher each time. So the beauty here is that you normally get like a third thrust here. So you normally probably go a little bit higher here. Maybe it goes to 245 or something like a bit higher there, but that's your 1, 2, 3 there. But that can be an ending pattern. So that's the only risk with that one there. But unless I look, you know, it's been a strong trend here. Gold's pretty robust, so could be wrong here. But I just know that overlapping top there is something to be wary of, and there is a little bit of distribution in some of those stocks as well. So I just got to be a little careful there. Definitely a time to sort of tighten up here. So stock like that, it might be, you know, if it was me personally, I'd have say some at the 10 and maybe some at the 20. Maybe split my sort of orders a little bit, or I might sell some into heap and then backstop, you know, the rest or something like that. So some interesting charts here this week, Chris. Actually, okay, I'm looking through it. Everyone saw AQM was the last one there. I thought this is okay here, a bit small, but volume pretty robust here so far. But some really good looking charts. There's some good lessons in there as well.
Well, the last one on the momentum list that we hadn't covered from the members' request was just ARU, a bit further up in the list. For Romeo Unicorn.
Yeah, just a little choppy, little small as well. So has come from a pretty deep pullback as well. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Just, you know, we went to a new low there, a bit of a false break here. So sometimes I can go back. We go back to retest that level there potentially. So got some okay volume there. Just always do get a little bit nervous on those smaller stocks there when you see that type of bar, because that's sort of like, you know, it's hard to get out of these small names. So when you sort of, the stock's been running, and I, having dealt for, insiders, and what I mean by insiders is basically people who hold large amounts of stock in their small stocks. So guys who put the companies together. So they usually escrow for a couple of years. They got to get the thing going, and they can only really sell into events. So it sounds weird, but they're not usually dictated by, I mean, they'd like to sell at a good price, but price is actually not usually one of the key determinants. It's actually liquidity.
Liquidity, yeah.
Yeah.
So looking way out.
Yeah. So often looking for some good news, which might actually trigger some activity. That's why sometimes we see, oh, this stock's been running out. All of a sudden it's had some great news. And then bang, it didn't go anywhere today. It went down.
But there was big volume.
Yes, big volume because it draws in, because that's the only time that the insiders can actually get out of these stocks is when it's liquidity.
And when you're dealing with these type of insiders, we're looking at, say, a 20-cent share here. It's rallied to 20 cents.
Yeah.
Their average entry price might be sort of something like half a cent or something like that at the time.
Yeah. Could be 2 or 3 cents and options, and it could be, could have been in there for 2 or 3 years. It's a long time. They're normally escrowed for a couple of years, and then looking for good people in place and manage it sector. Hopefully something happens in a sector, but it's not weirdly not price driven at all, liquidity driven.
So they might have still a mortgage that they haven't been able to put a big whack into for the last 3 years, or a boat they want to buy, and whether it's 15 cents or 20 cents, they don't really care. I haven't had payday for a while. I'd like to get paid.
No, it's just, I was, for years I sort of could understand why they, I mean, I'm thinking, why don't you be a bit more selective of price? But then I realized you got millions of these things to try and trade out. You just got to, it's liquidity.
Well, they're quacking.
You just want liquidity. So, so you want to be sort of waiting for that good news. That's why sometimes you see stock that's already run up, it's sort of buy the rumor, sell the fact. That's essentially what it is. And it's just it's not that it's not good news and stuff for the company there. I mean, sometimes you can get those EPs, where the good news comes out of by surprise, and that's when you get the EP and run there. But if they've been running up, and then all of a sudden the news comes out, particularly the smaller names, that can be a liquidity event for people to get out. That's just, it's hard to get your head around that, but I've seen it a lot. So having been on the inside of that, now I understand why that happens,
Whereas you would have studied the charts for years, going, I can't see what's going on here. But so that's a really rich lesson to learn, because you might trade for years and years and years, but unless you're actually doing the trades for these insiders, that's hard to come by. So that gets us through the momentum. Before we jump into the launchpad leaders, what I might do is I know we talked before air. I asked, sort of, is there anything that stand out to you? And said, well, look, I think you said something like, gold's pretty obvious, but beyond that, I'm not seeing anything majorly. Is that
it's like, gold and silver obviously pretty robust in there. Uranium obviously had the tick last week, so it's still robust. It's still sort of hanging in there. Haven't seen the tight consolidation of pullback that I would have loved to see from those. So it's got me in two minds there. But that was still a pretty strong move for that sector. So should still be on our radar here, in my opinion.
Well, it is still ranked 8th for the Launchpad Thematic, if we just look at the top 200. But to pull apart some other insights out of those numbers, it's no surprise if you're following gold explorers, like Gary said, 1 in 4 are gold explorers. For the mining shares, that's ticked up so that 80 out of the 200 are mining-related companies. And then that follows through to what we're seeing in the Launchpad. So the non-mining ones that are standing out, yes, we still have some defensive, some aerospace, that kind of thing that we were talking about before. But it's quite interesting to see, if you look into the depths of which companies or which themes make up the majority of the Launchpad. Where is it? I've sent the list through to Gary, and I've just read through the names, because it was gold producers, uranium, gold miners ETF, miners producing mineral output. And then you've got to go still further down to find some of those other thematics jumping up in there. But they seem to be kind of tech related, software as a service, AI machine learning's in there, IT goods, so selling some sort of hardware. And then, like Gary said, rank number 3 is uranium still, but that's partially because of what happened last week. So I'll hand the baton back over to you after those sort of number crunching. What's on the launch pad? What have you seen? Or what parts are standing out?
Let me just fix this chart here. So the SBM is, this has probably been one of the obviously worst performers in the gold sector. So it's actually starting to pop here. So kind of interesting there, sort of, because we know that the strongest names go first and then they filter through, and then it's like the market, you found a low, it's big caps, then it goes, filters down the mid caps, and then the smalls that are at the end. Does happen with the sector as well. The strongest names go first, and then the laggards join the rally last here. So, SBM's had all sorts of issues. So it's interesting here, it's actually rallying here. So this is sort of like, it is kind of interesting to me, because sort of this, if this is getting towards the end of that rallying gold, the laggard should be rallying last. So it's, it's interesting here. I mean, it looks like it, to me, it looks like this wants to go higher here. So probably should take out, go back to this high here. It's got some, it's had a nice little consolidation in there, but this has been really weak in that sector. It's been probably easily, I'd say it's in probably the bottom 2 sort of gold stocks there in terms of performance there, really. It's been really, really weak here, but it's just interesting. This one is rallying here late there. Obviously that RSG was the other one that had a few issues recently. That also has just started to sort of climb as well, Chris, as well. So 2 of the sort of the biggest laggards in that industry are sort of have just started to get a wriggle on here as well. So I find that interesting, just maybe as a little bit of a contrarian sign, and just to be cautious there, maybe tighten up some of those gold stocks as well, just based on seeing the laggards come in late here. So PYC, just got this on a watch there. It's sort of had a pretty big correction there, so that's a bit of a negative, but has maybe potentially made a first high low. Just, you want to sort of see this kind of break here, but sort of hasn't sort of done that yet. So maybe just sort of tightens up here, but just one that I've sort of wrote down, sort of watch here. And one of the reasons why it's on my watch list, Chris, because there's not much else. There's probably only like a lot of, I was talking to someone today, it's probably, there's not many 5-star setups going on at the moment. So in terms of actually looking for what, all the characteristics I'm looking for my sort of, for my playbook, they're just kind of like, they're falling short, maybe 1 or 2, So I'm looking for, say, 6 indicators, and maybe I'm only getting 5 out of 6. So if I'm looking for 8 for some of my playbook, I might only be getting 6 or 7 of those. I'm not getting all not getting
ticks.
Yeah, not getting all boxes ticked here for a lot of the setups there. So it's just not many. There's only really been a couple of setups there, and the things about the setups actually have been working. They've been working slowly, so not working fast, which is, so it's constructive, but just not moving fast enough for my liking. So PYC just goes on the list because it looks sort of somewhat constructive then, but not high class there. Look, NVX is interesting there. Look, this has got a lot of overhead supply, so again, a bit negative in that regard, but has had a bit of a rally here, a bit of volume there. Sector sort of, a few stocks in that sector starting to move, Chris. I don't know where that ranks, sort of, that lithium sort of space there, but, I think saw during the week here that Chinese futures actually hit 1-year lows. Lithium price, I saw a lot of stocks are actually making high lows there. I mean,
earlier in the week, lithium was ranked a fair bit higher in the launch pad.
Yeah,
it was. I've been in the top 5 or 10.
Yeah, so Liontown's got like about 3 or 4 high lows here, so it's got a bit of a base sort of built there. So I think even IGO's had a bit of a pop out of the range, come back, sitting on the 20 so far, holding here. So it's kind of like it's early days here, but considering the futures are at the lows here, some of the stocks are actually showing a little bit of something. So we're interesting. They might be a bit early, but just like those were.
Yeah, I ran through like the top dozen of lithium. They were all way under the 200, so didn't quite. But I was surprised that they made that list. Anyway, Bannerman, back to
and Bannerman, which obviously isn't at uranium space there. So we had a few uranium stocks there last week. This, I mean, what's constructive here? This is one of the few that actually has held up nice and tight here. So if you look at off the low here, we've sort of gone 1, 2, 3, 4 days up here. You probably call this an inside day. So I call that a 5th day here. This range gets broken here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 back days down here. So the one thing you'll see in there is that so far we've seen pretty good volume on the way up here. So nice 5 days up here. And we're seeing pretty light volume here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days of pretty light volume here. So that's actually pretty, that's what we want to see. Holding that 20, I think, is quite good as well. So you can see in the past there, see how it's run up here and then injection on the 20, and then go back a couple of years as well. Just a few of the sort of setups there coming back to the 20 as well. So stock's got a bit of history at the 20. So that's what you got to look for, is sort of like, looking for characteristics of the, see the 20 here, the 20, the 20. So, okay, it's just got, just sort of know this stock. Each stock's got its own personality. So just like people. And so we're looking for some sort of commonality there. So that's probably pretty constructive there. So looking, I think BOE was the one that came out of the blocks there. It's pulled back a little bit deeper. It's come right back to the 20 again as well. So similar to, did sort of do something similar last time. I think it had a bit of a rally here, come back to the 20. Had a bit of a pop here, came back just below the 20 here this time. So volumes are slightly less here. So yeah, it's just definitely sort of interesting looking through those names here. So they're still sort of, catching my eye, because we had that, we had a whole sector light up the launch pad. We know that, that's often a precursor to these sort of sector having a larger move there. So it's going to be on a radar. If we've been following this report for 12 months or 2 years or 6 months or 3+ years, you know that. So we don't have to sort of prove that to you. You've already seen it happen over the time we've been following here. So, we've seen it from lithium, from gold to silver to even property trusts. Even property trusts are sort of showing their hand as well. So we saw if even financials were robust there for a while. Geez, who would have thought some of those rallies would have been there? So just interesting there. That's definitely a sector we should be all eyes on, should be at the moment. ANG was sort of one that I thought, this previous stock has had a pretty decent pullback there. Just had a bit of a pop here. So a little bit out of character there, but still think this is a stock worth following here. Just need to see the whole thing tighten up here. So does sort of, have some pretty strong fundamentals, the stock here. Does rate pretty well on a lot of fundamental based sort of measures, but price wise, we want to see this whole thing tighten up here. So that's the reason I'm watching it there. Deep Yellow was on the list as well. So another name here. So again, they've all sort of popped up out of the range. They've all come back to the 20 here, because they're all sort of, it's all a bit of a key level here right at the moment. So interesting there that we've seen that, and the volumes are a lot lighter as well. So, if you drill into those drill into that rally there, so we're 7.2 million, 8.9 million, 10.5 million of stock here. So pull back here, 4 million, 2.8 million, 4.9. So with literally half the volume, less than half on the pullback end, and 2 or 3 times as much volume on the upside there. That's the sort of, that's why volume's important. Okay, this shows your conviction in the market. But yeah, interesting. We've sort of come back here. So definitely going to be watching these. I'm watching this pretty closely here at the moment. So, I might even dip the toe in the water on maybe 1 or 2 names there, just to maybe a small starter. If I see the right thing on maybe on a half hourly or something, I still got might be a bit early. But it's not ready yet, but I think it could be getting close there. So, ANG.
With that one, yeah, and then Deep Yellow.
Deep Yellow. So, there was 40S on here, but
it was requested.
Pretty small here. Look, I don't know. Yeah. Look, it's, I'd say avoid personally. I think, like, the chart looks okay here, but yeah, a lot of overhead here. volume's pretty low. There's nothing happening spectacular in the volume wise. Just the price looks like it's stabilizing here, but we know these sort of stocks there, they can just sit here for ages. They need a bit of a catalyst there as well. So, not sure of that. I know it sort of looks like it's stabilizing there, but yeah, that's the sort of stock I might have bought in the first 5 years of my trading career, and been sitting in there like for a month or two later with nothing to show for it. Yeah, it's not the sort of stocks I want to be trading anymore.
Like I said, Minivini says he wants to be invested for the least amount of time possible.
Yeah. So ASM is interesting then. Possible change of character. We're seeing a bit of an uptick in the volume there. It's still a pretty small name. Still has not broken a swing high here. So maybe a bit of a stretch to say change in character, but just seeing a bit of uptick in volume. But yeah, again, pretty negative trend there, pretty weak there. So, that's unfortunately that's an indication of sort of that's the more interesting looking setup at the moment is a very, a B setup, the very, and maybe B is probably being generous. So the whole idea is we're just going to sit out, going to have that sort of sit out power here while the market's setting up. Because what normally happens there, Chris, is that when you have a period where there's no setups, all of a sudden the setups will just flow. Yeah. So if you don't get caught in the shit here and get yourself in the shit,
stay liquid, out of dry.
Stay liquid, you just that way because you can concentrate, you can do your homework, and but you start trading these setups here, and they're going against you, or they're not moving, and then you're stuck in them, and then all of a sudden A setups just start rolling through. You're stuck in all these Bs. They're all slightly behind, and you're like, oh, I'll get out, maybe break even or something, or it distracts you. So there's a reason why Minivini says you'll sit in cash and let everyone lay the groundwork, and then when the setups come, bang, they're all over. And then they're just rolling. And then I remember sort of Mark Ritchie sort of saying when he first learnt the setups and the discipline, and then just sort of surrendered to the system, he said that they would just, the setups would just flow over. We'd just be trading them and they'd be pop, be trading them and they'd pop, and just over. And so when they flow, they have that window of where they make, serious money. And I know personally that around 12 or 13 weeks of the year account for around about 140% of my returns. It's exactly what they're doing.
Get as well.
Yeah. So there's a reason why you sort of got to be patient there.
Well, when I was going to pull that stat out of yours, and like you've said, in studying some of the greats, quite often, and this comes down to day traders as well, they'll say there's a handful of trades. Sometimes it's half a dozen, less, but quite often 10 to 12. Those trades make up the majority of the returns for the year. And back when I used to have retail clients and we'd trade momentum trades, the hardest thing for a new trader to get was that sometimes we've just got to sit on cash. And I remember I'd lose clients because they'd say, we haven't got a trade on for X number of weeks. And what are you doing? Yeah. And they just got impatient and they wanted to trade Bs and Cs. And then what would happen is a week would happen and we'd have 4 or 5 setups within a week. Okay, here's an A setup, A setup, A setup. This is it. This is what we've been waiting for. Like, oh, look, I've already invested in this and this, and I want to wait for this to happen. And I'm doing this dividend play over here. That's it. You've missed the window for the year. That's kind of like, that's your sweet spot.
Yeah, I've heard so many sort of talk about the stories in the early years of when he was managing money. So it'd be up like 40% in, early in the year, maybe like in the first half. And in the third quarter, they didn't do any trading because the market was soft. Yeah. And clients going, hey, what are you doing? You're not trading. I want to take my money out. I'm up 40% for the first half, we're waiting, so that it's amazing. It's,
you lose clients by doing the best thing for them. But anyway, that's an aside. So
that's bad. Gold Road was interesting there. This was actually one that did give a little false breakup here, Chris. There's actually one that I did consider for the short side. Would have been a good little short trade here, but all it did was actually come back down and do the undercut. So didn't do the first day. This is the first day here, went the second day, the third day here, but it didn't really give you 3 days. It just took off. So would have been hard to trade that one. It wouldn't have met the Crabel sort of little 3MA sort of system there, but this just goes to show you the strongest names, they will have that little ABC pull back and go again. That's the That's what you're looking for in those sort of stronger setups there.
That one was on my short list. I was hoping for a coil under 260, and then what?
Because even if you go back and think about 360 on the way up as well, 360 a few times there, I don't know. You'd have to go back 2 years there. It did a few of these ABCs, undercuts there. I'm trying to find it here. Maybe I might have been a little undercut there and come up there. There's a few undercuts in the past there. I found this one here. But yeah, like there's a lot of those stronger names, definitely do a lot of the undercuts. SS1, which is Sun Silver. Thought this was pretty interesting. That has broken a little, you know. So it's been a bit of a leader here. Obviously a new IPO, been pretty strong. Pull back here, sort of looking for like a maybe ABC. It has come back for another leg down there, but now it's actually breaking up here. So we have broken through here. Some good volume behind this as well. So looks kind of okay here to me. So, you know, whether you try and play these for a bit of a load sheet here coming through a high low or something, that's always possible. But that looks all right there. Is it FX? What's the sort of look? Oh, what's the there's an IPO as well. The SS1. Maybe that's it. Maybe that's the. Oh no, there's another silver stock that's just come on the market recently. IPO.
Yes.
No, I can't remember the name of it. It's absolutely killed it. Well, it's actually not an IPO. It's actually a scale out on another stock, Chris, as well.
And spin off.
Might have been on the previous there, but yeah, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. I was talking to another trader there. It's sort of harboring that sort of because it wasn't an IPO, it doesn't come up in my IPO scan. But it was actually rolled out. It was rolled out of another asset or out of another share, sort of broken up. Trying to think of the stock there.
Yeah, we might. You keep going, and I'll try look it up.
Well, that's the last one there. Actually, it's BBN. So I thought this was interesting. It's showing a bit of relative strength. The BBN there's the baby buntings there, but it's just a little probably. It's a little loose. You'd probably prefer to see it tighten up like this. You know, that's the sort of key there.
There were still three. Was there more on that chart, or
That's the last one. Yeah.
there was still three on the request that we didn't get through on the launch pad? So Codan, CDA.
Yeah, got a bit of an overbalance on the trend here. That's probably had the largest correction of the whole move here. So that's for me a bit of a no-no. It's a bit like, you know, there's really, I mean, McLaren was, you know, when you have the biggest correction of the move there, so that look, it can go back up and retest the high. It can even go back and actually make a margin new high, but more often than not, it'll make a first lower high here. So just, yeah, the bit negative there. Look, the only pluses in there was reasonable volume coming on this bounce there. So, and I had people talking about Codan as well. So a potential new product there. So yeah, look, maybe we're wrong on this one here, but just the overbalance there is a little bit negative there. So, yeah, for me, it's a bit of a sit back there. I don't know if I'll be buying that one there straight away. Just kind of reminds me, you know, there's certain rules there. When you get an overbalance there, it's pretty negative. And then, you know, like the one thing O'Neill would say with momentum stocks, Chris, is that once they cross the 50-day moving average, we've seen this. This is probably the strongest stock on the board for the Australian market, PNL. This is probably, you know, this is out in the video, really. The thing about long-term success there, yeah, big moves and stuff there. So this, you know, our number one stock here is now basically broken a 50. That's a no-no for momentum stocks as well. So, all the greats say nothing good happens under the 50-day moving average. And yeah, so I know sort of like William O'Neill would be definitely out on a break of the 50. He would never be like any momentum share that wasn't above the 50-day moving average. So you can see here, this is when that's cracked here below here once before, but then, you know, he literally would have had you there. You know, if you bought this sort of breakout here, with a little B wave or a little, you know, however you sort of come back in again, if you waited for the breakout there, you long from August all the way through to February there, and it's a pretty nice move there, just by following some pretty pretty simple rules. Though.
Almost 100%.
Yeah. The thing that's interesting with this stock, Chris, is that see how this sort of rolls off here, has a little bit of a counter move and then moves down there. So what we do is we see a little bit of, that rally there and the previous swing high, there's spacing there. So this it's trying to rally here and all of a sudden it turns down here. So, oh, that's not good because there's actually left a bit of spacing there. And then this falls again. And then we get a bit of a grind here. See how the low volume on this rally? And again, there's our last low. That rallies here, and like this day here, that's like, oh, that's a nasty day. That's we're gonna go low here. We're gonna go to a new low. So because we've got spacing between there, we're gonna move down here. So I don't know where the low in this stock is, but I don't know if it gets back to the 150 where the last drive started or not. I just know it's under a bit of pressure here. Just got to sit back here and this sort of stock here. I did kind of feel like some of our leading stocks was sort of, hadn't really sort of fallen enough. So even though our market's come back that 10 to 12%, now I reckon that's a good low here. Most sort of that mid-March lows, because it's a post-election year, market normally doesn't get going until early April. So usually still stays on the weak side until early April and then moves there. So if we get like maybe a little bit of a pullback there, maybe a higher low in the XJO, we're probably going to see some of these growth stocks there, because I know sort of 360 went to a new low in the last few days. I think trying to think just a few of them, I think TUA's come off as well, so that was a pretty good number there, and it got really solid pretty hard as well. So just seeing all the leaders break down here, which is kind of, it's normal. So it's what we normally see there, but they might be finding lows after the market's found a low. Not everything finds a low at the same time here. So so we're looking for sort of stocks that sort of show strength there. So that's our job here. A couple of stocks I thought were interesting, Chris, was CHN, got a little bit of a VCP there. Big day today here because it has just sort of flirted with the 50 here. Might be a negative day here, but does need to sort of hold this level here. Hold this. Yeah, and that's sort of sitting on top of that high as well. So it's a big level for a lot of reasons. Previous little high, little tightening pattern as well.
And the volume's been, this one's one of the few ones on my short list as well.
Yeah, so it does sort of hold up all right. The other one that I thought was really interesting is EML. So, because this is sort of like, this is a nice sort of, this had a bit of an upgrade in the stock here. So much better numbers there. And yeah, gone back up again and top. So this is a nice little cup and handle here. It's tightening up here pretty. Had that little one day, had a couple of little up days there, but not much volume in it. Considering how weak the market is, this has held up pretty well. So, and there's been a couple of other stocks in that sector. Obviously, we had the takeover offer for one of the other players there. What was it?
It's just running this list.
Push and Pay, it's like there, yeah. Smart Pay, SMP is so I think that's basically one of the players that's been under takeover from.
It's yes. Well,
yes, there's a few showing a little bit of strength in there. So that's another sector. Just keep an eye on that.
They were main two on my watch list. The two that you just brought up.
Yeah. I thought TLG is interesting there, but it's just a little bit on the lower side, but tightening up here, it's okay. I think AZY was one that, this is the one that has been on the list a few times quite a bit. And if you guys do like this sort of stock as well, but it hasn't got the volume there, but still looks pretty robust there as well. So a few stocks there. So I think uranium is probably on the list there. I think defense stocks are in the sort of hold list. They're sort of, congesting. So I'd probably just watch those. But there's a few names in there as well. I mean, actually, some of the energy stocks have actually done pretty well, Chris. These are the sort of stocks that, like we did have a little VCP on Beach there, broken out, but it's, hasn't really got going. It's been a bit disappointing personally. And Karoon as well, like a bit of a cup and handle in here as well. But it's moved up here, but been sort of sluggish there. I think we saw, I think Santos just had a bit of a rise here, so that's pretty nice, I think. Yeah, Woodside's sort of broken through the 10 and 20 last few days. So yeah, maybe there's a little something on the energy sort of side there, but definitely feels like the metals is a bit happening there. So,
Oh,
but
definitely.
yeah,
Momentum's just full of minerals, metals, miners.
yeah,
So I definitely agree with sort of, well, CH and an email. They were on my list of short ones, short list. The two others on the launch pad just before we break was AL3 and A4N. Um,
AL3, yeah, possible change of character there. Sort of has come back in a large ABC, bit of volume there. It's a little small for me, but yeah, it's not a bad sign there that we've actually. I mean, it's had that big move there initially, so yeah, it's sort of on the radar. So yeah, it doesn't look too bad.
then A4N Alpha 4 November.
And okay,
It's under the 50 though. So just from a false break perspective, could that, and then the 3-day EMA, does that fit into that criteria, or is it too far from the previous lows?
yeah, could do. The only thing is there, just what are you seeing in here so far? Not a lot.
It's not convincing. Heavy on the down, not much
Yeah.
on the recovery.
Yeah, that's right. So really heavy sell in there. I know, look, it can get, the volume can come in heavy at the very end and then it can turn there, but not seeing any strength there so far. So yeah, to me, I'd probably go and have a look out there. You know, it's sort of like, yeah, this is sort of still in a pretty weak position here so far. So yeah, it's not one that I'd be looking out there personally.
Right. Well, there's solid insights from Gary. Thank you for the lessons of looking back over momentum traders, giving ourselves up to the the process. And then what we'll do is put on the link here, the model book at the end. That is definitely something to recap. When we're short of a short list of what to look for, we're scouring and we're only finding Bs and Cs. That's when we go back and have a look at the model book to remind ourselves what the top stocks do look like. And we say, thank you very much, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.